Mr. Robinson, ladies and gentlemen, tonight here we've got some very special guests. We've got Stanley Fleetwood. Stanley Fleetwood was manager of the year in 1962, but Stanley Fleetwood was also in Blackrock branch under the managership of the very famous Billy Vaughan. Stanley, you're very, very welcome. Ned Kelly is here, and Ned Kelly joined the Northern Railways in 1931. And Ned was in charge of the first diesel train that travelled in Ireland. You're very welcome representing CIE today. From Old Findlaters, that leads me on to the memorabilia room. The memorabilia room is not a family conceit. The memorabilia room is about people and products. It's about the people that worked in Findlaters, it's about the people who shopped in Findlaters, and about the people who ran Old Findlaters. Inside there, I tried to capture a lot of the characters and a lot of the anecdotes. We put loads and loads of captions on so that you can get some feeling for the people and the story that lies behind it. My grandfather, William Findlater, and his brother, Adam Seaton Findlater, who managed the company for 50 years, between 1890 and 1940, they both got honours degrees in Trinity, logic and ethics. The memorabilia room is a new chapter. Some people go in and say, oh, it's terrible, all these things have gone, but everything had its life. The Empire Theatre in Belfast had its time with us, and the church and all these sorts of things, but we're very honoured to have Nicholas Robinson here tonight to cut the tape and perform the opening ceremony. So I'd invite Nicholas to come up and say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here. When I was a little boy growing up in Monkstown, my grandmother used to take us shopping in what she obstinately called Kingstown. RTE announcers call Dunleera, and many of us know as Dunleary. For all her gentility, she was a tough old lady, and I remember all those times when, in her late 70s, we walked, and walked vigorously, to save the tuppence bus fare. Tonight I'm reminded of these outings with my grandmother, because Findlaters was a regular port of call. And I realise now, looking back, that this old lady who walked down from Monkstown, marshalling 2 or 3 small boys, and walked back clutching the household groceries as well, reflected the sort of discerning, determined customer whose loyalty had been built up over many generations by a remarkable merchant family whose business in Ireland had started early in the last century. Tonight, Alex Findlater and his partners Frody Dahl, John Hamilton, Nigel Werner, and now David Miller, known to us as Findlater Wine Merchants Limited, write a new chapter in the Findlater story with the exciting commercial venture they undertake from these historic premises at Harcourt Street. They have done me the honour of asking me to launch the venture, and it is typical of their professional standing and friendships that I do so before such a large and distinguished gathering of the business and professional community in general, and the wine trade in particular, among whom, it should be noted, I am very careful to spread my own custom widely, if not liberally. Alex, in fact, wrote to me as chairman of the Irish Architectural Archive because he knew that the Harcourt Street vaults below the former railway station would be irresistible, as would the permanent exhibition of Findlater memorabilia, illustrating 170 years of trade and commerce in Dublin and indeed throughout Ireland. So, as the new chapter is being written, let us reflect on some of the highlights in the story so far, a story you will glean from this exhibition. And I'm particularly glad to hear of the help of Daniel Gilman, who has been such a friend to the Irish Architectural Archive. And I must also congratulate David Dowling for his work on the exhibition. The Findlaters came from Scotland, and the Irish firm was established in Dublin in 1823 by Alexander Findlater. His uncle, another Alexander, was supervisor of excise in Dumfries at the end of the 18th century. One of his young officers was to become his closest friend and Scotland's national poet, Robert Burns. Now, Robert Burns is eminently quotable to any gathering associated with the wine and spirit trades. Here's a favourite of mine entitled Grace After Dinner. O Lord, since we have feasted thus, which we so little merit, let Meg now take away the flesh, and Jock bring in the spirit. Much has been written about the friendships of Robert Burns and his supervisor Alexander Findlater, later collector of excise at Glasgow. In the collection of memorabilia, you will see how Findlater was to become known as Burns's friend in life, his vindicator after death. If I were to single out more than a few of the 500 artifacts, ephemera, memorabilia that you will find in Vault 13, you'd be here for hours. You'll see a beautiful silver épergne presented in 1857 to the founder of the Irish firm. Standing 2 feet 6 inches in height, it was made by Hunt and Russell in London at the considerable sum of 250 guineas. You'll find details of the great Presbyterian church in Parnell Square, then Rutland Square, which was built by Alexander Findlater and bears his name to this day. The foundation stone was laid in November 1862, and it was finished at a total cost of £13,394, 9 and 11 pence. There is a grumpy entry in Findlater's ledger. Paid Bolton, the builder, £1,000 gratuity, he having alleged loss by his contract. I trust P.K. Joyce, the contractors on the present job, won't give our Alex any undue surprises. And I compliment them on their excellent work. Incidentally, it is one of the trade's proud boasts that while Findlater, the wine merchant, built his great church, George Rowe, the distiller, restored Christchurch Cathedral, and Lord Iva, the brewer, restored St. Patrick's. Now, what else will you find? Tantalizing price lists, including one 1865, listing porter and ale at 2 shillings per dozen pints. Best old Irish whiskey at 18 shillings per gallon. My solicitor colleagues will recognise Sir William Findlater, MP for Monaghan, who was twice president of the Incorporated Law Society and benefactor of the Findlater Scholarship. You'll see Piper Findlater of the Gordon Highlanders winning his VC on the northwest frontier of India in 1897. Piper Findlater was shot through both legs, but sat up under heavy fire and played the regimental march to speed on the charge of his comrades. You'll find 5 unopened bottles of Bass King's Ale brewed in 1902. A bottle of this was sold as a collector's item in 1921 for £94. Goodness knows its current value. I spotted Havana cigars, Scottish spring water, cocoa, tea, cream, coffee, stout, sherry, vintage marmalade, port, peas, raisins, flour, starch, olive oil, hams, table jelly, soda, and rolled oats. Gay Byrne, in his memoirs, reminds us that he aspired to be a messenger boy in Findlaters to become financially independent. you'll see photographs of Master Alexander playing this role, though the right to describe young Mr. Findlater thus, even when perched upon his delivery bicycle, was reserved to extremely venerable members of the staff. Another character you'll come across is Major Harry de Courcy Wheeler, Alex's maternal grandfather, who received the surrender at the GPO in 1916 for all the leaders. He also took the surrender outside the College of Surgeons of his wife's cousin, Countess Markowitz, after whom, earlier in the year, he had named his second daughter. These then are just some of the many items that caught my eye. But what of the building itself? In 1859, just 3 years before work began on Findlaters Church, Harcourt Street Railway and Terminus was designed by George Wilkinson and built in less than 12 months at a cost of £8,502. It was to close, alas, 100 years later at the end of 1958. As far as I can ascertain, there are 22 numbered vaults, but unusually, the memorabilia room is in the vault numbered 13, and there is no number 12. Maybe the runaway Wexford Express, which crashed through the outer wall and balanced precariously over the street one early afternoon in 1900, did for Vault 12 in the process. I understand that Gilbey's started to bond here in these cathedral-like premises from the late 19th century and continued to do so until recent times. I do know that during the years in which the premises were lying vacant, Alex and his partners have long pursued the dream to make it their headquarters, and, as Alex has indicated, the battery of many a pocket torch has been exhausted in the course of persuading their engineers that their dream could become the reality we witness tonight. It's a bold, exciting adventure, and I know I speak for their many friends and for everyone in the business community when I wish them every success and good fortune. And you'll excuse the small vanity contained in my final wish, that on some appropriate anniversary, long hence, this occasion might be remembered by a fading snapshot in the memorabilia room, recording the health of old Master Alexander and partners being toasted suitably by old Nick. Thank you very much.